Hello and welcome to sportingways.com for the start of the new Premier League season. My name is Thomas Rooney and once again, like last season, I'm joined by Joe Rooney. We're going to look at each fixture for the Premier League in the opening weekend, just to give a couple of thoughts on each team and then give a prediction for each game. And we're going to begin with Arsenal versus Sunderland, which is Saturday, 3 o'clock, when it all kicks off in the Premier League. Talk about Arsenal quickly to begin with. Decent summer in the transfer market in terms of the players they've brought in, but overshadowed by the Van Persie situation. Strong start to the season, crucial. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they got off to a shocking start last season, didn't they?
And catch up.
Yeah, so they said, they've added some real good attacking players. I mean, they didn't have a very good defensive season, but added attacking players. But, Robin Van Persie, at the moment, he's still an Arsenal player, so their squad just looks stronger. Okay, and then Sunderland, obviously it's first season under Martin O'Neill, first full season, I should say.
Yeah.
So they kind of, not many people have been talking about those in the summer, have they? Because they haven't added too much in terms of new players. They're trying to get Stephen Fletcher from Wolves, but that hasn't quite happened.
Yeah.
So maybe the fact that they haven't been talked about probably will be reflected in their aim for the season, which will be a mid-table finish, which they'll be reasonably happy with, sort of with a cup run, and they'll want to kick on. This will be a progressive season for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think their aim is just to sort of steer clear of the relegation battle. I mean,
certainly to begin with.
Yeah, it was O'Neill that took them out of that, and they sort of stumbled, didn't they, towards the end of the season. So this season, I think they just want to be consistent throughout, picking up wins when they need it, and a mid-table finish is what they're probably aiming for.
Okay, so we'll go for a prediction. Arsenal versus Sunderland. I think it's going to be Arsenal, reasonably comfortably. They could possibly go a goal down, slow start, then I think they'll really come out of the blocks when they need to, and I think it'll be 3-1 to the home side.
Yeah, I also think Arsenal, actually, I think just run-of-the-mill, just a solid win for them. I'm going 2-0.
Okay, next up it's Fulham versus Norwich City at Craven Cottage, another 3 PM kick-off on Saturday afternoon. Talk about Fulham to begin with, and obviously Martin O'Neill was in charge last season. They showed signs of being a really good side and finished strongly to finish 9th in the end. And in all seriousness, that's probably something they'll look to replicate this season, but maybe sort of have a cup run thrown in or more consistent throughout the season, maybe push the top 8 rather than just the top 10. But overall, they'd probably be happy with 9th again, wouldn't they? That's sort of the position they're in.
Yeah, definitely. It was a very good season for them last time out, wasn't it? I mean, the side with Clint Dempsey's been going on all summer, but similar to Robin Van Persie, sort of still there, and he's likely to feature on Saturday. And they look to be they're a solid Premier League side, aren't they? And don't really expect them to be too involved in the bottom or challenge the top 6, but just another solid team that are going to be looking to mid-table.
And home form important for them, as it was last year. And for Norwich City, it's going to be a fascinating season for them. Obviously, did fantastically last season, but that was under Paul Lambert, who guided them to back-to-back promotions. He's now gone to Aston Villa. Chris Hughton's the new man in charge, so same sort of players, if not a stronger squad, but probably their biggest challenge of the last 3 or 4 years this season to maintain the form under a different manager.
Yeah, it's going to be very tough for them, but I mean, like I say, they've got the players with the know-how now to stay in the Premier League. Added some quality players from the lower divisions, like they did under Lambert. So
the hunger and motivation still there.
So Hughton's going for the same sort of philosophy, and they're going to be a very interesting watch this season, I think, definitely.
Okay, so we'll go for a prediction on this one. Fulham at home to Norwich. And I actually think neither side, or their biggest priority of both sides actually, will be to not lose. So I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw, fairly even game throughout, and 1-1 draw for me.
Yeah, I think Fulham just maybe look the slightly stronger out of the 2 sides at the moment, and I think they'll just edge this. Decent game, but I think Fulham 2-1.
Next up, we've got Queen's Park Rangers at home to Swansea City. Another 3 PM kick-off on Saturday afternoon, the opening weekend of this Premier League season. Talk about QPR to begin with, and I mean, they were in the headlines all the time last season. They, in the end, just stayed up on the last day, but this is where they want nothing to do with the bottom 3 this year. Given the money they've spent, given their ambition, given their board, this is a massive season for the new era of Queen's Park Rangers, with some big name players coming in, and as I say, plenty of ambition to push really on in this Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously their first target is to get to 40 points, but they're going to want to do that
as quickly as possible.
Yeah, they're going to want to do that quickly. I mean, sort of the likes of Ji-Sung Park, he's a quality Premier League player, isn't he? If he stays fit and is involved, I think they're going to be strong this season. They should, on paper, be well clear of the relegation zone.
I suppose they could have said last season a few times they had the team to get better results, but they didn't. So a tough test for Mark Hughes, and it's in his first full season in charge. And then for Swansea City, pretty similar situation to Norwich, actually, who we've already talked about, because they had a tremendous season last season, finished 11th. That was under Brendan Rodgers, who's now gone to Liverpool. So, unlike, it's also different to Norwich, so they've actually lost a couple of key players as well. So they had Sigurdsson, who's on loan, he's gone to Liverpool, and Joe Allen, he's gone to Tottenham, and Joe Allen has gone to Liverpool. So really tough season for them, but they'll look to prove people wrong once again.
Yeah, definitely. They're going to probably be the surprise package again if they can, because sort of they weren't expected to do much last season. I don't think they are again this season. A lot of people tipping them for relegation. But yeah, the only problem is that they have lost two of their big players from last season.
Midfielders,
and Alan recently as well, so he hasn't given them much time to then go and act before the season starts. But you know, they've got quite a bit of money for them, so hopefully that they can put that back into their squad now, and you know, they can bring some good players in.
Okay, so we'll go for a prediction on this one. Queen's Park Rangers at home to Swansea City. And I think QPR will just nick it. I think it's going to be 1-0 to the home side. Really can read too much into this in terms of what these teams will do. I'm not sure, but I think QPR will have enough to win this opening day fixture. 1-0.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a different result actually. I think the QPR side, they might just take a little while to gel, take a few games to get into the swing of things. I think Swansea could actually come out flying, and they might just edge this one 1-0.
Okay, next up, as we look at the opening fixtures of the Premier League this weekend, we've got Reading versus Stoke, 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. Not going to get too many people talking about it before this one, but it is a newly promoted side against an established Premier League side. And we'll talk about Reading to begin with. Obviously came up from the Championship last year, performed extremely well under Brian McDermott, and they'll look at what Swansea and Norwich did last year as real motivation to, you know, take the Premier League by storm and not just think we need to stay up, even though that is their main priority.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've shown some intent in transfer market, haven't they? They got Pogmaniac in, I believe. I think you said it right there. But you know, he really impressed at Fulham last season, didn't he? He's a very good striker, and you know, if he stays fit throughout the season, then he's likely to get the goals that could keep them up. So you know, it looks to be a decent outfit, I think.
Obviously, a good start will be a bonus for them. Stoke City, obviously, they've been in the Premier League for a while now, but we've said before a few times, sort of off camera, you've sort of said you're a little bit worried about them. This could be their season where they maybe dip, because there is lots of teams coming up that are looking to push on. So you think they could be one of the fall guys, maybe? I
think they could. I don't know why. I just sort of think maybe it could be their time. I think maybe their style of play is it's not really suited to the Premier League anymore, with so many quality teams coming up. But I mean, I hope they prove
maybe to have a battle, but not necessarily go down.
But then obviously, I think if they do get in a battle, they've got those kind of players that can get them out of it. But I don't think it will be as straightforward for them this season as it has been in the past.
Okay, we'll go for prediction on this one. Reading versus Stoke. I actually think it's going to be a bit of a rude awakening for Reading, sort of into Premier League life. I think, in a strange way, they might be almost overconfident because they've seen what the teams have done coming up. They've obviously got some good form behind them from last year. A home game against a team that they're capable of beating. And I think Stoke will actually take it 2-0, which will be a mini wake-up call very early doors for Reading.
Yeah, I can't really see much happening in this game, to be honest. I can see both teams sort of not wanting to lose the game, and I can actually see a 0-0.
Okay, next up, another 3 p.m. fixture. This is between West Brom and Liverpool at the Hawthorns. We're going to talk about West Brom to begin with. Now, obviously, they lost Roy Hodgson, like a number of teams seem to have lost their manager over the summer. They lost Roy Hodgson to England at the end of last season, which is a shame for them because they were, building something good there and a good solid finish for West Brom last year. Steve Clarke's in charge, his first big managerial job. He's normally sort of an assistant, which he has been at Liverpool, the opposition this weekend. So, they'll just be looking to sort of maintain the form that they got under Roy Hodgson, won't they, and sort of build the momentum from his decent spell at the club. Yeah,
definitely. And I think West Brom fans are maybe a little bit worried about this season because, like you say, it's an unproven manager. You never know what to expect. Good start as it is for most teams is absolutely vital for them. But I think they're likely to be sort of around the relegation battle. But you say they've got the players that could get themselves out of it, and they do have some top quality players in their squads that can really provide those bits of quality to keep you in the league.
The home form did let them down a few times last season, so they'll be home win against Liverpool with massive for them at the start of this one. As for Liverpool, another new team with a new manager, a new era. That seems to be the phrase at the moment, new era. They've got Brendan Rodgers in charge, who obviously done very well at Swansea, but other than that, he's had in different styles at other clubs, so it's a big call to appoint him. But how do you think they'll do? Obviously, Andy Carroll's been thinking to move away, so that probably indicates the style of player they'll play, but they've got some very good players, they've got a good young manager, it's just whether it all clicks into place, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a massive test for Rodgers. I mean, he's been at Swansea, he did so well when not much was expected of him. At Liverpool, no matter where they finish in the season, big things are always expected of them. And with the Carroll situation, I think they've maybe been a little bit foolish. He's a 23-year-old international striker that's a very good player. No matter what you say about him, he's really shown signs. And I think he could still be a big player for them this season. I don't think Rodgers should play, have it in his head too much that he wants to play on the floor. Carroll's a very good player.
Okay, so we'll go for prediction on this one. West Brom versus Liverpool. I think it's going to be an entertaining one, but I don't think it's going to be anything to choose between the two sides. I'm going to go for 2-2 in this one at the Hawthorns.
Yeah, I can see Liverpool just edging this one. I think they do have those players with the quality just to beat their opponents, and I think they'll win this 2-1.
Okay, next up we've got West Ham at home to Aston Villa, another 3 PM kick-off on Saturday afternoon in the Premier League. It's opening weekend. We'll talk about West Ham to begin with. Obviously came up by the playoffs last season. They've got a manager in Sam Allardyce that has done it before in the Premier League with some decent sort of similar sized clubs. The expectations there to obviously avoid the drop, but maybe there's something there to push on a little bit as well, because they've got some good financial backing, they've got some good players, but priority one, stay up, and most West Ham fans maybe would settle for 17th now if they're being realistic. Yeah,
I think you have to. When you come up in your first season, that's what you've got to settle for. I mean, yeah, like you say, Allardyce, he's a proved Premier League manager, isn't he? But he hasn't done it in a while. But no, I think West Ham, they look a good outfit, but they're gonna need time to gel. I think and they might possibly be slow starters. I think, but in the end, sort of produce the results when they need to.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that they could maybe be 15th after 10 games or something, and lost a few games they should have, not playing the style of football, and the fans will get on the back of Allardyce, which they maybe need to manage expectations a little bit at Upton Park. But it'll be an interesting season for them. It's always interesting watching West Ham. Then Aston Villa, last season was terrible. They just about stayed up with Alex McLeish. Everyone knew he was going to leave, apart from him it seemed. But then he was on his way. Paul Lambert's come in, and he'll be looking to replicate sort of what he did with Norwich last season, sort of really take on sort of a club that was underachieving and sort of push on to sort of top 10 finish at the very least.
Yeah, I think the Lambert and Villa, they sort of seemed to suit as the next move for him, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know, he's taken a club that are sort of almost at the rock bottom for what they've been for a while, you know, and he's going to be looking at someone like O'Neill, who he's a very similar manager to sort of replicate the success that he had at Villa. And, you know, I think this season could be sort of, you know, just almost consolidate just mid-table and then really push on in the next few years. But they're going to be a very interesting watch, I think.
I see Darren Bent's staying fit is crucial for them.
Very,
We'll go for prediction. West Ham at home to Aston Villa. I think this is going to be, there's obviously not too many on opening day you would hope, but I think it's going to be a 0-0 draw. I think both teams would be reasonably happy, get a point on the board and get out of there and sort of push on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, as I said, I think West Ham might just be slow starters this season, so I think that they might just edge it, just have that Darren Bent possibly getting on the score sheet. I think they'll take this 2-1.
Okay, next up we've got the late kick-off on Saturday afternoons at 5:30 between Newcastle and Tottenham. Definitely one of the pick of the opening fixtures this weekend. Talk about Newcastle to begin with, and obviously fantastic for them last season. They were performed above all expectations. They had some very good football, got some fantastic players going forward, and it's just about matching that this season, I guess. And if they can improve on it, then all the better.
Yeah, just more of the same. You know, just sort of continue that momentum from last season. It's going to be tough because you know
the expectations there now.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, if they can do something similar, it would be incredible. But you know, I think they'd still take a top half finish. I think they'd still be good. I mean, you've got the likes of Liverpool and stuff who are going to look to push on. And you know, if teams are at that best, Newcastle probably think maybe they might not be in the top 6, but you know, they've got a hope for a good season.
Okay, and Tottenham, obviously they got the new manager, Andre Villas-Boas, as he gets called. Obviously he started poorly with Chelsea last season, and that kind of was the end of him really. As soon as they started balling, the players sort of then began to disagree with his methods. So do you think perhaps more than any other manager in this league, he needs a good start just to A, prove to people he could do it in English football, and B, just to sort of win the fans and the players over, because that just didn't happen at Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think Tottenham might be a better match for him. I think maybe the expectations aren't quite as high there. And, you know, he'll be allowed to play sort of more attacking football, what he likes to play, what Spurs fans like to see. And I think he might be given a bit of time, maybe even this season, just to get in the swing of things. But you know, I think they've got to give him time. You know, he's a young manager. Give him a season to let the squad gel, and then see what you can do next season. But they're going to be there or thereabouts for the top 4, I think.
Absolutely. And so it should be a cracking game. We'll go for prediction: Newcastle versus Tottenham. And I actually think it's going to be Tottenham to sneak it. I've got a feeling that Newcastle might get off to a reasonably slow start. Some bit of cliche say it's going to be a hangover, but sort of whatever term you want to use for that. But I think it might be Tottenham that nick it 2-1.
Yeah, I can see this being one of the pick of the ties actually from the weekend. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. Both teams playing their attacking football, and I don't think there'll be much to choose between them in the end. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw.
Okay, moving on to Sunday's fixtures now. We've got Wigan versus Chelsea, a lunchtime kick-off on Sunday afternoon. We'll talk about Wigan to begin with, and they're still in the Premier League,
Yeah.
which, there's several points last season you wouldn't have thought you'd be talking about them in this preview, but they did very well to finish the season strongly, getting points against the likes of Chelsea and sort of the bigger teams, so they'll look to start this new season positively, so they don't have to do that ridiculous catch-up at the end of the season. So, big season for them, but once again, you would expect them to be in the mix for the drop.
Yeah, but I think they've got to show now that they don't just start their season in March. It's all very well getting sort of 20 points from March to the end of the season, whatever they do.
Can't rely on that,
Get 20 points between August and October or something. It's really time for them to start the season flying and move away from the relegation battle, because they've shown they've got the players and they can be good enough. But like I say, don't start the season in March.
Okay, and for Chelsea, obviously another team sort of with new manager, full-time manager, Di Matteo at the end of last season. This is his first full season of Champions League winners. They need to be Premier League title contenders this season at the very least. That's kind of their main priority this year, I think, rather than maybe succeed in their European title. They need to be in the mix for the title and nothing less.
Yeah, and I think they look in good shape to do that. They've added some real quality. I think Oscar especially, I think impressed me when I went and saw him in the Olympic Games. I thought he was very good. Could really set the league alight. And I think this is the year for Fernando Torres as well. I think it's going to happen. I mean,
scored in the Community Shield.
Good tournament, Euro 2012, and a very, very good finish. Sort of classic Torres finish in the Community Shield. So I'd say watch out for Torres.
Lots of people rooting for him, that's for sure.
Definitely.
Okay, so Wigan versus Chelsea. We'll go for a prediction. I think it's going to be reasonably comfortable for Chelsea. I think they're going to win 3-1, and Torres may get himself on the score sheet to kick-start his season. Yeah,
I think a win for Chelsea. I think maybe not quite by as much as you say. I think they'll just sneak it. Not the best of games, but I think Chelsea 1-0.
Okay, next up is the first Super Sunday fixture of the season. It's Manchester City versus Southampton, and we'll talk about Man City to begin with. Home banker ready for them, you would think, because obviously last season they won the Premier League and they did so by having some fantastic form at home. Similar squad, which I think actually will help them because it means they haven't got new players to gel or stuff. They can get off the season on a positive note, and they'll expect to win this one reasonably comfortably. Yeah,
definitely. I think someone like Carlos Tevez, it's like having a new signing at the club, because in the Community Shield he was one of their best players, and he sort of looked fit, he looked hungry, and he looked happy with life at the club. So I think Mancini sort of is content with his squad and just is backing them, because obviously there's a lot of players that had their first Premier League season last year. He's backing them just to get better this time out, I think.
Obviously got Jack Rodwell's come in, but obviously he's a Premier League player anyway, and how much he'll feature in the first team to begin with, we don't know. No. So it's fascinating for them to see them buying young English players. They're linked with a couple more this week as well.
Yeah,
for Southampton, obviously newly promoted side, away to the Premier League champions. Tough, but arguably ideal start, because everyone's expecting to get hammered, to be honest. So anything less than that, if they compete with them half an hour or so, then they can really take that into the rest of the season, can't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is the time for them to sort of come out and show that they're a decent side, but at the same time they want to avoid a big heavy defeat. I know that's what people are expecting, but all that confidence, momentum from last season, they don't want that shot in one game, do they? So they've got to come out and fight and try and maybe get on the score sheet and just challenge City a little bit.
They've got to get the balance between sitting back and then pushing on as well, because they can't afford to sit back for 90 minutes because they haven't. So fascinating approach for Southampton. It should be a decent game. So prediction-wise, Manchester City versus Southampton, I think it's going to be City that win. I think it's going to be maybe not a hammering, but maybe 2-0 to the home side. They may take their foot off the gas with a bit of time to go, but Southampton can take good half from it.
Yeah, I think City as well. But I think they might thrash Southampton. To be honest, I think they've had their one competitive game already, haven't they? I think they could really get into the swing of things here. I think actually 4-0 to Manchester City.
Okay, moving on to Monday evening. It's the first Monday night football of the season. It's Everton versus Manchester United. We'll talk about Everton to begin with. Obviously, they're notorious for starting slowly, and it's beginning to get very frustrating for them because they do finish reasonably well, certainly beyond Christmas. If they did start well, then who knows what they could achieve. So they're a good side, a big club, big fan base, but a slow start always tends to hold them back. So to win a home game against Manchester United at early doors, that would do them wonders, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think this fixture could almost sort of decide if they're going to start how they usually do, or really kick on. I think a victory here would really show that they're ready to go for the new season, and they could be in and around the top 4 early on, as we've seen with their of their form towards the end of the season, if they can be in and around that top four, they can make a serious challenge for it, I think.
Obviously, they lost a couple of players, like Tim Cahill, but he didn't score as many goals last season anyway. And Jack Rodwell has gone to Manchester City, but he was injured quite a lot.
Yeah.
They've got Stephen Pienaar who's come back in. So they'll be looking for a positive season again, looking to push on. And sort of remarkable consistency that David Moyes has had there over the years. Manchester United, one word really, isn't it? It's revenge.
Yeah, definitely. That's what they're out for, isn't it? You know, if you're going to say one team that can bounce back from this under a manager, it's Sir Alex Ferguson and Manchester United. I mean, they've done some business in the transfer market. I mean, they look to bring some good players in. You know, the likes of Wayne Rooney have really got to step up again. And Paul Scholes of another year, he didn't want to go out on a loss, did he?
Absolutely. And Van Persie possibly coming in. That's still being linked. And if they get Rooney and Van Persie together, then you know, because I think at the moment they're kind of relying on a couple of younger players like Cleverley being fit and performing, and then some sort of relatively unknown in terms of Premier League new signings performing. So they maybe do need that big signing just to sort of really put someone proven in the Premier League. But obviously they'll be contending for the title. There's no doubt about that.
Definitely.
So we'll go for prediction. Everton at home to Manchester United. And I think it's going to be a classic Manchester United. I think it's going to be Everton 0, Manchester United 1. Everton could dominate at some stages, but they won't get the goal, and then United to nick it 1-0.
Yeah, I can actually see a draw here. I think Everton are going to be more up for this game than they are any other. They love beating Manchester United, but sometimes have quite good records with them at home, so I think in the end it's going to be 1-1.